Hey guys, this is Tom Paul Tipton, your host for the Exchange Podcast. We're coming to you from Living Water Church in Conway, Arkansas. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode and say thank you to those who support this podcast with your contributions. Please like and share us on Facebook and get the word out, and like, subscribe, and share us on YouTube. Send any questions you have and join in on the exchange.
Bingo, bango. I love that intro. A lot of people, I've heard quite a few people. When I say a lot of people, I know a lot of listeners will say, oh, is it like 100? I would say 10 people, just a lot of people to me, because I don't talk to many people. And they're like, that intro sounds good. You guys did a good job on that. And so shout out to Chandler Ballou and Thomas for working on that after hours.
Yeah, the old intro was kind of the same thing, but it was getting, I think it's a whole lot better the way we're doing it. And I've had some positive feedback on that as well. And so I enjoyed doing it. And again, I want to say thank you to Chandler as well. He does a lot of production on this and does a great job. And
yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, my name's JaVaughn Iversen. I was missing last week. It's
good to have you back.
Well, I was missing it, but I think I had a good replacement for enjoyment. My nephew has been in town for the last week, and I'm a very family-oriented person. My family, just growing up, we've always been family first. So when I got the opportunity to watch him for a week, I jumped on that, and I was really excited to just have him around. He's adorable. He's energetic as all get out. And, he I don't need to be a doctor to tell you that boy is a boy. So.
The positive thing about the nephews and the nieces, you know what that positive thing is, right?
What's up?
That you can give them back to their parents.
Yeah. Sadly to me, I will be taking him back home to his parents tomorrow, but I'm excited to say that Sarah and I, my wife, we spoiled him pretty well this week. We went axe throwing. He couldn't throw an axe, but, taking a baby out to downtown Little Rock and just having a good time. I gave him a donut from Hertz Donut, not sponsored. And, it was just a good time.
Great donuts, though, by the way.
Great donuts. I was having a good time. It was,
if they want to sponsor us, they can.
Yeah, right. So a lot of things have happened in the last week, and we are excited to go over those things. Something I want to kind of put out there is that today is June 6th. On this day, there's only one other person here with me, so do you know what happened on June 6th?
Juneteenth.
Oh, no. Juneteenth is not until...
Oh, wait a minute.
June 6th. I'm not going to give you the year because it'll just be a dead giveaway.
Yeah, Juneteenth is like a month.
19th or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a black guy and I still don't know what Juneteenth was.
I should know this. And then I'm going to kick myself when
I tell you what it is.
Yes. Was it the Emancipation?
Nope.
Oh, God, no. This is the history guy speaking. And my dates are... I had a history teacher once that said, don't worry about the dates. Just worry about how they died, and if you can't remember how they died, just say they died of a heart attack. I do not recommend that, but for some reason, I know I'm going to know this date, but I'm racking my brain right now.
All right, for those of you who are listening, I will quote a very famous speech from June 6.
Oh yeah,
soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
I was just listening to this speech today.
Toward which we have striven these many months. That is from June 6, 1944, the invasion of Normandy.
That's right. And here's the interesting thing about that speech is when you go on and read it, he goes on to pray a prayer. Mm-hmm. And the prayer that he goes on to pray is one of asking for forgiveness for national sins. And that's the difference, I think. That's the difference right there.
Well, God forbid we ever just sit back and we say, okay, listen, this nation has made mistakes. We need to sit down and just forgive on that. We need to forgive it so that we can come together And you know the enemy's at play when nobody wants to just say, yeah, you're right, we do need to just put things aside and get along. Because, look, I know for a fact that, and this is applicable because it is June 6th. You know, it's an anniversary of a very, very important date. I know for a fact that there were black, white, Cuban, Asian Americans who embarked on that great crusade, you know, to quote a great president, in my opinion. And, you know, it's one of those things where back then, when atrocities were happening around the world, it didn't matter what color you were. You just said, I'm going to go take care of business.
Absolutely. And, you know, because we were talking before the show, and we were talking about we were talking about whether or not to bring up movies, and
Specific movies. Yeah.
specific movies, and one of them that is the one that came out last weekend, and it's Top Gun Maverick.
Danger Zone.
It was Kenny Loggins, I believe, who did this. I think
That's from the first movie, right?
Yeah, and I believe that was Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
And another movie, and you mentioned about it didn't matter what the race was. I think about the movie We Were Soldiers, and Mel Gibson in his speech as they're finishing up training and they're getting ready to go to Vietnam, and he said, you know, here you're Jew, you're Greek, you're Gentile, black, white. He said, but where we're going, none of that means anything anymore.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's incredibly sad that cannot be meaningless, because as I've quoted before, the Bible tells us that in God there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free.
Yep.
You know, so it's really sad that as a nation we are permitting, and I don't think it's the people per se that's doing it as much as I think it's our media and it's our politicians that are doing it.
We can't allow establishments get in the way of the truth, because that is a great barrier. Okay. Something that I said I wanted to talk to on the show pertains to what's going on right now. A lot of you will look in the media and you will see time after time, we need to take guns away. We need to get guns off the street. We need to get guns away. You know, it is wrong for people to have guns. And you know something I've heard people actually say, you know, forget the Constitution. I'm tired of it. It's an old document. No, it's a living, breathing document that has stood the test of time, in my opinion, on this one, next to the Bible. Stands the test of time. Gives you a good basis of a good chance to live your life the way that God intended it. You should be able to say whatever you want to say and be able to defend what you say if somebody tries to stop you from saying that. And my heart goes out to those who lost their lives in Philadelphia. Another shooting.
Well, there was one in Chattanooga too.
Yeah, and here's the thing. At this point, I'm gonna speak from a person who's 27 years old and grew up with the internet. You know, you grew up without the internet for a little while, and then the internet showed up. You're in that like nice, sweet.
Yeah, I was in my late teens when the internet came out.
You're in that hybrid thing. You know how to use a rotary phone, but you also know how to log into the internet.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe your parents may not know how. It's people like your parents. Not saying your parents, but you know, I've always had the internet, or at least I did for my developmental years. And you know, I am desensitized to certain things, and I have to say, I'm not going to say that I don't care that shootings are happening, but I'm getting tired that we're fixating on just one or two shootings when and we're saying, oh, this is the problem. This white man, that white man, this white man. And then there are shootings in Chicago, and then people want to say, oh, well, that's racist to bring that up. You don't understand what they're going. It's like there's still babies losing their lives out there. You know, there's still people who are losing them. And what happened in Uvalde, you know, I blame that on the cops, cowardly cops, police officers who didn't do their job when they should have. And I know I've heard it before. Oh, you don't know what that. No, I know. I was trained by some really great captains and lieutenants who taught me what I need to do when I was a police officer. And the job is you radio in and you go stop the shooter. You don't wait for backup. You go in there. for your whole life, if you've ever wanted to be a police officer and you wanted to be a hero, that's your time, not to stand outside. I'm not going to talk about Uvalde that long. I'm going to talk about the real thing, which is establishments like the government trying to step in and say, you don't deserve this type of freedom.
Right.
And, we were talking about Ruby Ridge and Waco.
Mm-hmm.
Something about Waco that totally bugs me is I'm going to get called a conspiracy theorist for even talking about it. But no, there are actual documents saying that they lost specific pieces of evidence showing that the government did wrong.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I remember when all that happened, and you mentioned another incident, and you have because both of those are there's a lot of common threads with both Ruby Ridge and with Waco. And so with Ruby Ridge, that actually started, I want to say that started in, I think it was like 90. It was right at
92, Ruby Ridge.
Yeah. George H.W. Bush was still in office when it started. And the whole thing with that is Randy Weaver was a Green Beret, and he was a survivalist. I'm pretty certain he was racist. And now, why do I bring him being a racist up? Because being a racist isn't necessarily illegal.
It's not a death penalty.
No,
that's for sure.
And so he went to some kind of pro-Aryan church. And when I say Aryan, I'm not talking about a specific, Aryanism, or I'm talking about like the Aryan Brotherhood.
Yeah, that's not a denomination or anything.
No. and I do want to specify that because I want people to understand that he wasn't somebody who, was an apologist for free will. He went to a church that was white. It's not superiority. What's the word I'm looking for? White supremacist. Yeah. And he goes there, and while he's there, there's an undercover ATF agent that makes his acquaintance and becomes friends with him. Now, the mistake that Randy Weaver actually really made, now this is what puts him on the map with the government, is going to this church, and I'll get to that in just a second. Him and his wife pay off all their bills. They start living off the grid. He goes and builds a makeshift cabin up on this ridge there at Ruby Ridge. He buys it. And then he starts living off the land. And that's mistake number one. The government doesn't like that.
No, they don't.
And so he then goes down and he becomes acquainted with this church. And while he's there, this undercover, I believe he's an ATF agent, gets him to asks him if he knows how to saw off a double barrel shotgun. And he does. And he ends up sawing it off something like a quarter or 3/4 of an inch too short. So like something that should never really have mattered.
Right.
Not to an extreme amount. But they go ahead and they arrest him and they press charges. Here's where everything gets weird. He gets a court date stating that he's got to be in court. I'm just going to throw out a date. Say like he's supposed to be in court on August 15th.
Okay.
That's what his court date shows. But the judge actually set it for like August 7th. So like a whole week prior. Right.
So he's thinking he's got time.
He's thinking he's got time. So he goes into town to go meet his court date, and they arrest him. And they charge him not now with just sawing off this double barrel shotgun, but now failing to appear in court. So basically they're trying to build the case and build the charges against him. So he realizes what's going on, and I think he gets bail, and then he goes up. He was trying to be compliant with them. And so one day he's driving home, and he sees this camera up in the tree that he knew he didn't put up there. And the government is now surveilling him. And so him and his son are out hunting, and this like special operations guy who shouldn't even be there This guy's military.
Yeah.
And so he goes in and I think he falls out of a tree or something. And the boy sees him, and when he does, his son turns around and takes off running. And when he does, the guy just opens up. I mean, fully automatic. It just opens up on him and shoots him up the whole length of his back, kills him.
Yep.
Well, Randy Weaver has no idea what's going on. And he goes back to his house, and they hang out there forever until this. I can't think of his name, but he was a high-ranking Green Beret himself, and he's the one who come in and talked to Randy Weaver. But they had military personnel down at the bottom of this ridge, and they even had rules of engagement drawn up, which you don't draw up rules of engagement unless you're in war. So basically, it's like, they're trying to make this guy the real life Rambo.
Well, I'm laughing. Just to be clear, I'm laughing because, real life Rambo? Come on, that's a cool nickname. I'm laughing because it's absurd that the amount of trust for the government, or I'm not going to say trust in the government, I'm going to say willful ignorance to what the government can do. The Joker said it best. Batman, I'll fight Batman all day. The IRS, what do you think I am, crazy?
Yeah.
So the government, whether it's the IRS, whether it's the FTA, whether it's the ATF, whether it's the BBC, whatever it's, I'm making fun of them, okay?
Right.
I know those aren't all things, but when it's an abbreviated name and they're coming after you, FBI, CIA, you name it.
The alphabet.
Yeah, the alphabet mafia. They're gonna. They make the rules.
Yes.
Okay. So if the reason, when referees for the Super Bowl are vetted so hard so that they don't skew the game one way or another because they don't want them to be betting on it.
Yeah.
There's more oversight to the Super Bowl because of how much money is involved than there is when the government wants to take care of somebody. Those of you who don't know about Waco, Texas, also, the name really matters to what you call it, but it is called the Waco Massacre. It is not the Waco Siege. You look it up, and and Wikipedia and Google will always say it's the Waco Siege, also known as the Waco Massacre. When you read into this, which I have, and I've watched actually a pretty good documentary video. I wouldn't even say it's a documentary. It's just a really good guy on YouTube that I trust. His name's Windigoon. Shout out to Windigoon. Did a really good synopsis on it, and the government just went in and straight up killed children over. And here's the thing. Here's what I'm trying to get at. Don't let anybody, especially the government, make up lies about you, about what you're doing. Is a cult a bad thing? Well, you need context. If a cult is sitting there and they want to worship the sun on their own property and they stick to themselves and they help the community out and they're not hurting anyone, I'm sorry to say it, but that doesn't mean you should go bulldoze their house down.
No.
Okay? Now, obviously, if it's a cult and they're planning on doing things like, destroying public property or somebody's home, or they're trying to cause domestic terrorism, then yes, we need to figure those things out. But Waco was a man and his followers, I believe, I want to call them followers. I don't want to call them like concubines because
what it was. And that was kind of what I was talking about. So again, and I'm not saying that law enforcement's bad when I say this, and I'm certainly not calling for the defunding of police. But the first time that we ever heard the term first responders was under the Jimmy Carter administration. That's where that term came about. Why? Because up until Jimmy Carter, the First Amendment was the first, or Second Amendment, was the first responder. You were the first responder.
Right.
And so most towns didn't have, a lot of, years ago, man, a lot of towns would have their own personal sheriff. You didn't have a sheriff over a county. And so they've done away with that because they want to get rid of local police. And I understand that in some cases, local police get overwhelmed and they have to call in more organized bodies of law enforcement. I get that. But what was going on with Ruby Ridge, and I'm leading up to the reason why I'm using that is because David Chipman, if that name doesn't ring a bell, that's the guy that Joe Biden nominated first to be his ATF director. And David Chipman was at both Ruby Ridge and Waco. And David Chipman, number one, when he was asked by, I believe it was Josh Hawley, I think, who asked him what I believe it was an assault weapon was, he couldn't even define it. And this guy works for the ATF. And what I like to tell people, I'm going, okay, you want to talk about assault weapons? If someone picks a baseball bat up and hits another person, that becomes an assault weapon. If you want the true definition of assault. So David Chipman is and he's ready, man, to just go on and storm Randy Weaver. Well, come to find out, Randy Weaver ends up winning something like $7 million. And later, before Randy Weaver passed away, he actually got together and did some stuff like awareness kind of work about this kind of stuff with those of what was known as Branch Davidian, which is what you're talking about with Waco.
Yes, yeah, so what are they?
Branch Davidians. And
name themselves after like King David.
Yeah, and so and of course David Koresh's name was not actually David Koresh. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was something different.
And he gets involved with the Branch Davidian, and he just kind of moves up because he's this high charisma guy. And so it all starts because there are allegations being made that he's abusing children.
Yes, that's what it started. So this is what I'm getting at. The government, the people who make the rules, are going to say what they want to say about you, but throughout the entire time, because it is a siege, they did siege their compound. Okay, don't get that wrong. They did siege it. Because of the siege, there was a massacre that took place. That's why I call it the massacre. So I want to make it. I'm trying to make it very clear because not many people know about this. Just like Chinese people don't know about Tiananmen Square. They besieged this place from February to April, and they damaged water supplies. And here's the thing: they were trying to stop them abusing children, but they were also trying not to escalate anything. However, there are accounts of dispatchers talking with the Branch Davidians.
And even the children.
And they were telling them, please, we have children in here, and they are shooting the building. Please tell them to stop shooting the building. And here's the thing. It doesn't add up. Try to make this make sense. When the Supreme Court I don't think the Supreme Court got involved, but a bunch of senators and stuff, I can't remember what they call that, but when the senators were questioning the ATF and they said, okay, so tell us why that there's documentation saying that you guys were shooting at the building when nothing was going on. This is how messed up it is. They under oath will say we didn't do it.
Yeah.
They will lie. And here's the thing. They're going to say, and I mean the government, the faceless people out there, the men in black, whatever you want to call it, they're going to say, okay, we need to take guns away because then Uvalde would never have happened. My father grew up, and I've brought him up before. He grew up in L.A. during the riots. You want to know how Koreans stopped people from getting into their shops? They were called rooftop Koreans. Look them up. And they were pretty handy with a rifle. And if they didn't have those rifles handy, then their shops would have been ransacked. Mm-hmm. What you guys don't understand is that that's their livelihood. You take away a man's ability to work, you pretty much took it's worse than killing him. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at is that your Second Amendment right to defend yourself from the government is a real thing. True. But here's the other thing. My Second Amendment right is to also protect me, just period, from a bear, from a government official if they're being unruly and trying to take away my rights, or some other fool who's trying to take away my rights. I'm talking about the regular Joes on the street. Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody's making fun of people saying, oh, why do you need your AR-15 if they can just drone strike you? My AR-15 is for when Antifa decides to walk through town and wants to do something to my community. I'm not going to just sit by and let something burn down. That's what they were doing in Waco at Ruby Ridge. They just wanted to live their life. Do I agree with the Branch Davidians? No, I do not agree with them. But does that mean they get to die?
I agree with their right to assemble. And here's as I said, one of the one of the things that he says, and of course back then there was no Fox News, it was only CNN. And I say that because I'm not a fan of Fox News. Fox News does its own thing, but there was not any other outlet, if you will, at that time that was covering any of that was going on. And I remember even then CNN was playing it on their feeds at night, phone calls that they were making to David Koresh. And I remember him asking questions like, "Hey, I go out and I jog up and down this road every day. How come you're not arresting me? I go and I drive my truck to Walmart and you don't arrest me." He was asking some really good questions. Mm-hmm. He was out there. So you're law enforcement, you're past as law enforcement. So you know as well as anyone that when you're arresting someone, that's one of the most chaotic times. So you want to try to keep that as controlled as possible.
Yeah.
So why don't they go and immediately, as soon as he leaves, I mean, okay, there's allegations being made and they need to try to prove it.
Yeah.
So go and arrest the guy while it's happening. But that isn't what they did. And so it was being brought in every night, and you really didn't know what to believe, because up until that point, no one had ever heard of the Branch Davidians. And at that time there was a lot of rumors, and I don't know, I'm not, because I've got a particular charge here, and that is to not allow myself or anyone else to make a 3-ring circus out of this podcast. But I'm just talking about something that was actually going on at the time, and there was a lot of rumors that, that they were placing FBI agents in churches to watch churches, and I don't know. There was a book that Al Gore wrote, and I mentioned that because he was vice president at the time, and he wrote a book called Earth in the Balance. And I've never read the first edition, but someone that I know of who I trust did read it, and they said the reason that he had to reprint it was because he said that one of the problems with global warming were Christians who believed in, or one of the leading causes of global warming, were Christians who believed in end time and apocryphal events. Now, again, you would not be able to find that edition if it is out there unless you know someone or have ever known someone who has that first edition. The person who I heard say it is someone that I do trust, and they said that they read it in there. Now, I've never seen it, so I don't want to say it was. However, what we do know is that all of this comes together. The gun control, the climate change, all of that is part of a much bigger picture. And what's going on here, and I want to read something real quick out of 1 Timothy chapter 4. It says, "The Spirit clearly says that in later times some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. Such teachings come through hypocritical liars, whose consciences have been seared as with hot iron. They forbid people to marry and order them to abstain from certain foods, which God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and who know the truth. For everything God created is good and nothing to be rejected, if it is received with thanksgiving because it's consecrated by the word of God and prayer." One of the things that's being attacked right now in order to try to reduce green gases is people eating meat.
Oh, yeah. And it was just last year they were saying, eat the bugs, live in the pod.
Yeah, because and see, a lot of this food shortage stuff that we're experiencing here, they want to blame it on Putin, but no, this isn't Putin. This is stuff that could be easily corrected. Am I saying that it's being generated and orchestrated? I'm not going to allow even myself to make a 3-ring circus. So I'm very careful as to what I say.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that Biden, throughout all of the 2020 election, made consistent promises that he would get the CO2 emissions down to 0. And that's the fallout we're suffering from right now.
Bold move, Cotton. I just want it to be known that this isn't, it's like you said, this isn't a three-ring circus podcast, but guys, there's nothing the government that should be able to say that gets your attention and makes you think, oh, they have my best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they were willing to wrap up an investigation that thankfully was reopened by the people of 9/11. They were willing to say, okay, well, we figured it out. It was just these terrorists. Let's go. You dig deeper into it, and it's like, no. We want a little bit more. We want you to do something for those who suffered from it. They were willing to just.
So let me ask you a question. What? Not to cut you off. I just want to ask you a question. What exactly sparked the interest in Waco?
For me?
Yeah.
So like I said, I already gave him a shout out, so I'm not going to say it again. But oh heck, why not? Windigoon is a YouTuber. He got really popular just talking about just different conspiracy theories. I like his take on things, and it's just funny the way he goes about it. But then he was talking about Waco, and he's been talking about very serious things. He talked about Martin Luther King and how the FBI did that, and possibly did that, because I would hate for somebody to accuse me of something and then I get a game over on my life somehow in the back of the head twice. So, he's been going through these videos, and he got to Waco, and I watched it and did my own research on it, and I thought to myself, what's stopping them from saying certain people are doing bad things? Because there was no evidence, and it's like you said, the most chaotic time is when you're arresting somebody. And I've done a couple times where we served warrants to go into a house. You knock.
Mm-hmm.
No knock warrants are bad. Don't ever do them. It's unsafe for everybody. But we knocked. We went to this apartment complex. We told the manager. They gave us a key because we showed them the warrant. They gave us a key just in case we needed to use it. The key worked. We went in, guns out, guns drawn. Anything could have happened at that point. We didn't cut their water supply off. We didn't stay outside. We didn't shoot into the building because guess what? There were children in that apartment complex. Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, we need to be on top of these things of what has happened, because Ruby Ridge, Waco, Texas, and anything that could happen in the future from the government, they're willing to just put it out there and say, all right, I don't like these people.
Yeah.
And I would almost venture to go out there and say those were just test runs. Because here's the thing, my friends. Branch Davidians were just a cult that took their ideas from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Ruby Ridge, I'm sure there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of these cults like Ruby Ridge and Waco, they branch off from Christianity and they do their own thing. What's stopping the government from saying, okay, it's all stemming from the Bible. Let's just take whoever's believing in the Bible and put a red flag on them. That's why we shouldn't have red flag laws. That's why we shouldn't just go out and assume certain people are this way. Here's who deserves to have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of y'all. Every single one of y'all.
Yeah.
Anybody should have a gun.
Now, Oprah Winfrey said we can have yeehaw guns, by the way.
Oh, good.
I don't know what those are, but she said we can have them.
I'm assuming it's a big iron on your hip. I love that song, by the way. So what I'm getting at is everybody deserves a gun. Everybody deserves that constitutional right. I don't think anybody should be able to say that person was doing some weird stuff. Okay, well, if they are doing weird stuff, we should investigate. This means the KKK can own their guns. The Black Panthers can own their guns. Mm-hmm. Tom Paul Tipton can own his guns.
Yeah.
JaVaughn Iversen can own his guns. Mm-hmm. If somebody says JaVaughn Iversen is planning on doing blank, okay, well then whoever is the governing body to do investigations on that person, do it legally.
Do you know why? Let me ask you a question. Do you know why the NRA was created?
To protect bad people so they can go do atrocities against children, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And they are the largest supplier of yeehaw guns. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey did say that on The View. No, the reason the NRA was started was after the Civil War and the slaves had been freed. They came together and in order to make certain that the former slaves had guns to protect themselves against the Klan and against other white supremacists that wanted to do them harm.
Interesting.
AKA the Democrat Party.
Well, yeah.
And I say that because they were, that's another story for another time. But it is true. And that is why that was really the real reason, one of the primary reasons that the NRA was started. And so what that tells you is, if you read between the lines, is that every gun out there is a weapon of war at some point in time. I think I said this last week. I'll say it again. The flintlock was a weapon of war. The musket ball, the gun that shot the musket ball, the musket rifle, was a weapon of war. The Winchester was a weapon of war. M16s, so we can go on down the line. Any weapon that has created has been and can be used as a weapon of war. And you asked a very interesting question. If they can do that, is it a trial run? I won't lump all of our government into that, but I will certainly say that there are those within the government that, yes, they use that as a trial run, just like I believe that they used masking and COVID as a trial run to see how much they could control the American people. And I personally believe that one of the reasons why gas prices are rising as high as they are is not only to try and reduce green energies. I think that's the excuse they're using, but it's also to control people on where we go, when we go, who we go see, and when we go see them.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier in 1 Timothy, it says that there are those that will tell people to abstain from meats. The scripture tells us, and I read this last week, I'm going to read it again, Genesis 8:22, as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. So to answer your question, is it a trial run? And are those, well, we know this. In his campaign in 2016, and you can find it. I think you can find it on YouTube, but it's out there. Joe Biden said that any CEO that denies global warming or climate change, he'll have him arrested. And he's trying to sign an executive order now. I think he may have already signed it. I don't know how far that's going to go because I don't know if the courts will allow that to stand. But he wants to sign an executive order that permits that to happen. Now, why am I saying that? Because if you look, okay, the church that we represent here, we don't have a CEO, but in a sense we do have a CEO, not the pastor per se, but the denomination.
Oh, right.
And so if the denomination as a whole stands up and says, "Hey, we don't, we will do what we can, and we will always, because we believe that God created this earth, but we're not going to bow at the altar of the church of climate change," then yes, it's very possible that what you just asked, they could do the same to any denomination that wants to deny climate change, the exact same thing that they did at Waco and at Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, you just call them a conspiracy theorist. You just call them wacko nut jobs, and then you just go do whatever you want. Here's just a little bit of details about what actually happened. They brought tanks. Guys, if you want to sit here and complain about, oh, well, the AR-15 is a weapon of war, no, tanks are weapons of war. You don't bring tanks to my property without bad intentions. And here's what they did. They were poking holes into the building and then filling it with CS gas, and then mysteriously a fire broke out.
Yeah.
And the people who were, and I shouldn't say people, I will give you the men, women, and children hunkering down in the basement because they didn't want to fight. They just wanted to be promised that they were going to be protected. And the ATF said they were going to allow them to ride out their demands so that they can get out freely, even though this was unjust.
Mm-hmm.
The fire started, killed all those people in that bunker. And the ATF stood over those bodies as if they were in Vietnam, stood over those bodies as if this was a war victory. I don't know what to call it, because it was just, there are pictures of it. They just stand there over this building, this burnt, charred building.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe David Chipman was one of them.
I don't know if he was in the picture. That has been debated. I don't know at this point. Nothing on the internet is true.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But I do know that the reports also showed that when the fire department showed up, they were denied access.
Yeah.
The press was moved a day before to a site where you could barely see the house.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, it's all out there. You just got to be wary of it. Even if the Constitution was to burn up today, the knowledge of your rights, because that's what it is. You need that knowledge. You need to pass that tradition on from what the Bible gives us, the right to live and to worship God and to be who we are as believers. Right. That is what you get. Even if because I didn't get my rights when the Constitution was written.
Yeah.
Okay. When I say I mean just people didn't have those rights. They were just denied for the longest time. When that Constitution was written, all over the world, a lot of people were given the opportunity to say, "Hey, that right there, that's what we all want."
Well, this lady, her name is Angeli Gomez, and you mentioned about they had blocked the firemen from being able to go in, and Angeli Gomez, who was one of the moms. I think her children lived, I'm not sure, at Uvalde, and she was threatened. Now, according to what she told CBS News, and this was reported by MSN of all places. I think the Insider's the name of it. That she was threatened by the Uvalde Police Department with a parole violation if she did not quit telling the media what had happened to her.
An obstruction of justice, I think they said.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, the point is, does that make all police departments bad? No. Does that make all policemen bad? No. Does that mean law enforcement needs to go away? No. What that means is that the Bill of Rights are there to keep a government in check. And when we go vote, number one, we should be voting based upon our biblical faith, mm-hmm. our faith in God, and the Christ that lives within us. And the second way that we should vote is, how does this person view the Constitution? And if they view it, as you mentioned earlier, a dusty old document, they don't get my vote.
No.
Because I know what they'll do. What stops them from throwing tear gas into this studio right now and burning it down to the ground because they feel like what we're saying is, going to be part of some January 6th conspiracy? Nothing stops them from doing that. Only one thing. The Constitution. No, let me take that back. The Second Amendment, my right to bear arms, and the Constitution.
Here's the thing. It's part of the, it's part of the application process when you become a Christian. There is no application process. I'm making a joke. The job description, love God, love others, spread the word, and if need be, die for the gospel. Mm-hmm. Die like Christ did. And I'm not saying I want to. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, "I want to be persecuted today."
No, absolutely not.
So I'm. This isn't a challenge. This is just a reality of, look, I get to defend myself. I get to defend the people I love, and God said to love everyone. So if I see somebody who's in danger or something's wrong, then we need to call it out. And these things happen, and unlike Tiananmen Square, where the Chinese people don't know what that is, that's a whole discussion for another day, which the anniversary of that's coming up too. Mm-hmm. Waco, Texas, and Ruby Ridge, those things happened because a government thought these people were scary and we didn't want them to do the things we told them not to do, which the whole thing, if I recall correctly, was tipped off because somebody who was part of the U.S. Postal Service saw that there was gunpowder and dummy grenades being sent to their compound and said, they got bad things. We should do something about that. And here's the thing. Snitches get stitches. That's a joke. But still, I don't think you guys need to be afraid of the government. I think you need to just be ready to stand up to the government.
And be the rulers of your government, as Abraham Lincoln put it.
Exactly. Because here's the thing. I will agree with, when I hear communists say, we are the people and we need to stand up to them. Yeah, you're right. You are correct. We must do that. But how do you think we're going to do it without guns?
And in the last few minutes, we debated this before the show, but we're going to save the best for last. We probably should have opened it up with it. But
I don't know. I think talking about it is at the end is to give people.
We're going to give a little bit of a review, and here's my review on it.
Oh, we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's. Here's my review on it. Okay, this is what I'm talking.
You want to tell them what we're talking about before you start reviewing?
We're talking about Top Gun, Maverick. Okay?
Maverick, baby.
And here's what I'm going to say about it. Okay, it's the highest grossing movie right now, I believe, is what I read today.
Blockbuster.
And what I'm going to say is not to be anti-gay or anything like that. What I'm going to say is this: that movie is doing so well for two reasons. It's pro-American, and number two, there's nothing politically correct in that film.
Not whatsoever.
And there's not a gay person in it. There's not a transgender person. Does that mean that
no. There's no openly gay or trans person. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. It's not something that's being promoted. Is there the hint of romance in it? Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just good old fashioned romance. It's not hey, we got an agenda here and this is what we're going to push. No, it's just a movie that you can feel good and be proud of your country.
You buy a ticket. You sit in the movie theater. You got your jumbo popcorn. You got your big Pepsi. You're sitting there in Paris, Texas. And then boom, Tom Cruise is on the screen saying thank you to the fans, because that's what a movie is. If more actors, like A-list actors, came out and said, hey, really appreciate you guys coming because we just had the worst couple of years for movies, but you guys are here. You guys are spending your hard-earned money watching this movie. And you know something? That's what really did it for me. When I first saw that, I thought to myself, "Oh, this is going to be cool. This is different." Then we get the Mach 10.2 plane flying so fast. I was talking to my father-in-law is an engineer, and he loves anything that goes fast. My wife's family, if it has wheels, if it can go super fast, if it has wings, if it has all of those things together, they're going to watch it. They're going to love it.
Yeah.
My father-in-law drove motorcycles at ungodly speeds when he was younger, and he'll tell you about it. He loves it. But I was telling him, I said, Mike, could you imagine going 8,000 miles? And I remember telling you this because we were talking about it just briefly last week. I said, I think sometimes God looks over the gates and goes, wow, I knew I designed you guys for some great things, but good on you for reaching 8,000 miles. I loved every bit of it. Right. It's like Thomas said, there was no the romance just kind of, it was there. They mentioned the romance that was in the movies between Maverick and I can't remember her name because names didn't really matter. You just saw planes flying fast. But, Maverick and Pretty Girl. And I guess her name was mentioned in the first movie. And they just brought her back for this. And then, Iceman's in it. All the fun little jokes are in it. All the, there's a Star Wars thing in there for all of you Star Wars fans. I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to spoil the ending or anything like that. I have to say, you gave us the go-ahead. I'm going to say this. It's just a good movie. It all around is just a good movie. I love it. My wife loved it. What was your favorite part, if I just may ask? With no spoilers. Try not.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. It was for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's the Star Wars. It's the nod to Star Wars.
Yeah,
and you see the movie, you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, that was because it's such a huge nod to Star Wars that you're hoping that somebody says, "I saw this in a movie once. Let's do it."
I was sitting there and I'm like, man, Yeah, man, there's Anakin right there. I see it.
It's just cheesy, and it's a good movie. I think this will be the #1 movie of the year. And if I'm wrong, that means something better came out.
Well, this late, yeah, and I don't know what would come out. Honestly, that would do better.
They got Thor: Love and Thunder coming out.
I know Batman did well. Yeah, but I mean,
again, that's another one.
I think there's a couple of what's that?
I was gonna say that is one that is going to be pushing for female Thor, and that her name is Jane, but they call her female Thor. There's a lot of pushing out the old Marvel characters and bringing in new LGBTQ, all that type of stuff.
And that's the stuff right there that is killing the industry.
Well, it's because it's such a big eye roll.
Yeah, because why do you feel why do you feel impressed to try and convince me that's a way of life? Okay, I mean, I disagree with it, but I'm not arguing that people do it. Why do you want me? Why? Okay, let me put it like this: why are you trying to force me to agree with you?
Write me a good story first, and then if they happen to be gay throughout the movie, I won't care because the story was good. Do I agree with them? Nah, I don't. For instance, that movie about the Enigma machine from World War II, the code breaking and everything. The guy who invented it was gay, and then he was persecuted for being gay. But they wrote the story so well that I was.
Is that the one on Netflix?
It might be on Netflix. It has Benedict Cumberbatch in it.
Okay,
he's the main character, and I guess what I'm getting at is that you write a good story, and then if it's applicable to the story about being gay, then okay. But other than that, no one, I'm going to say it nobody cares in the sense that I just want to watch a movie with a good story. I don't care if they're gay. I don't care if they have, they just don't need to say, just don't need to allude to it,
Yeah. Well, and that's it. It's like, I don't have to convince you that heterosexuality is a thing and that it's real and that it's normal, but yet you want to take my head off if I say that homosexuality is not normal, or I say or I don't even have to say anything. All I have to say is, well, why do you got to put it in the movie? And then all of a sudden, I almost lost a job one time, and I didn't say anything about it. Someone asked me what my thoughts on it was.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And this was my words. Well, if that's the lifestyle you choose to lead, and the guy sitting next to me, who was a married guy, comes unglued. What do you mean lifestyle? What do you mean lifestyle? I said, well, I'm trying to answer a question. And then the next thing I know, a day later, I'm pulled in before a review board. I had to write an essay and give a defense for my answer. Yeah,
that's a different topic for another day. Since we are in Pride Month, we could always talk about I heard this on another podcast, the gayification of brands, but with the rainbow profile pictures and all that, except in Saudi Arabia. But Top Gun Maverick, how do you rate that? I'll go first. So it's your show. I'll go first. My rating for Top Gun Maverick, 8.9 out of 10.
I rated a 9, straight 9.
Okay, very nice.
I won't rate it. I wouldn't rate it a 10, and the reason is because it is a great movie. But the reason is because I think some of the anticipation is it was 36 years in the making, right? And everybody was waiting for it. Now what I'm waiting on is Iron Eagle remake, and then I'm waiting on another Hot Shots. You remember those movies?
Yeah,
I'm waiting on another one of those.
Well, hey, everybody, I love this exchange. We talked about some serious things, and let us know what you guys think about the movie review at the end. We might be doing those just for fun. You guys, it is summertime. You guys stay out of the heat, drink water, stay hydrated before you dehydrate, and we love having you guys on here. Again, you can go to livingwaterchurchconway.com if you guys want to support us. Find us on YouTube and Facebook. We hope you guys are having a wonderful week. Stay safe out there. We love you.